Today we have a very, very special guest with us, the Honorable Minister, Mrs. Catherine Hughes of Tourism. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good this morning.
You had a wonderful weekend?
I had a great weekend. It was one of the few weekends that I was actually in Georgetown. And so I was able to go to that fabulous show that Red Entertainment put on.
The jazz.
Yes,
Festival.
the jazz.
We had them here earlier. I mean, I've seen Arturo happen more than once. And from what I understood, I didn't get a chance to go myself personally, but from what I understood, he hasn't disappointed again.
Exactly. And you know, for me, it was a very, I don't want to use the word emotional, but it was close to that. Because my husband and I, when we had the sidewalk, were the first people to introduce Arturo to Guyana.
Wow.
And he reminded me, and he said actually that he'd been coming to Guyana since 1994. So it took me back to 1994 when we first met him in Barbados. We said, come to Guyana. And we've had, you know, we had shows for literally close to a decade. Well,
Yeah,
actually,
we're just
it's
about
much
there.
more than that.
Okay.
It's close to 20 years, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, if we calculate. I know it's early morning,
That's a long,
but
long time.
a long time. So
Wow.
it was really wonderful to see how he has progressed and expanded. His repertoire has changed. He has a fabulous band.
Yeah.
It's much larger.
He's really
They sound
adapted
excellent.
to
Exactly.
to the modern
Yes.
sound and so on.
And what he's done is that he's changed his audience. So it's not such a, he was always a contemporary jazz, not heavy jazz.
Yeah.
But he's expanded the audience, so he had a little bit of interpretation for soca, a little bit of, you know, a bit of some reggae, a bit
For
of
everyone to
everything.
enjoy.
So it was an excellent show. And so I thought, gosh, look how his life has changed, and look how my life has changed. So we had a good hug up after and a good opportunity to chat. It was wonderful.
Excellent. Great, I'm happy to hear. You know, that's an excellent prelude into, you know, what we're here to talk about. Just yesterday was World Tourism Day.
Absolutely.
And under the theme, 1 billion tourists, 1 billion opportunities.
Right.
So we had lots to, you know, there was lots of unfolding and strategies and plans, much like our new government has for Guyana as far as the tourism sector goes. So let's talk a little bit about that. The government has announced a new strategy for tourism here in Guyana.
Yes.
Can you maybe tell us just a very vague
Sure.
detail on what that might entail?
Sure. You know, it is, the strategy builds on the groundwork that the private sector tourism industry has been involved with. So I'm happy to say that I feel I have an advantage in that I've been involved with TAG since I came back to Guyana in 1993. And that was just about the time that TAG was formed. So together as a private sector body, we've been able to look at the challenges. I think that the private sector has invested heavily in the tourism sector. And we see that in all the resorts. We see it in the activities, the tours to different parts of the country, whether it's Essequibo, whether it's Berbice. Most recently, we've got this new tour up the Mahaica River for our birding niche. So over the years, we've been building on that.
Yeah.
And so I think we have a product, we have a good quality product. What our strategy is now is that we've more or less said, we think that tourism can multiply. We think it could be a key foreign exchange earner. We also think it can be a key source of employment, especially for young people. And as you know, we've got a lot of young people that are unemployed, and we got to get them working.
Absolutely.
So the strategy really is focusing on developing more product. And believe it or not, we have fantastic opportunity, but we really got to get more and more people to start thinking about the business of tourism.
Yes.
So in terms of our policy, we're actually finalizing what that will look like, what we want to focus on, our niche markets. And importantly, one of the things I've been looking at is the potential sources of funding to build this industry.
Yes.
The role of the ministry, and I'm happy we now have a dedicated ministry, so I think we're going to be successful. We can focus, that's the word, focus. We can focus on achieving those goals. And I think that the government has a responsibility to support the private sector
Okay.
and to put the infrastructure in place.
Yes.
So that's it in a nutshell. And I know you've got a load of other questions to ask.
It's okay, it's okay. No, I enjoy just listening because, I mean, they all tie into each other and you know, we can definitely, I can definitely see what you're saying as far as the different areas that the government has been going down as far as supporting in the tourism industry. When I say that, I mean, I've noticed the local support you guys had put on for the Rupununi Music Festival.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was a big part, and that covers, you know, ecotourism.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what you may not know is that you would have seen about the you would have seen our contributions to Rupununi Festival, because we think that's an important activity that can be expanded with a very specific concept, a very specific niche market. Because remember where it's located, it will never get 5,000 people.
Right.
But there is a market for potential tourists that go camping, that are prepared to come throw a tent and camp in that lovely area and enjoy great music that comes from all parts of South America, Central America, Guyana, Brazil, and in a fantastic setting. So, but in addition to that, there are lots of other organizations that we contribute to that quite often don't make it to the press or the newspapers.
Right.
Just on Friday, I met with the folks from the Rockstone Fish Festival. That's coming up. And you know, as I equated it to festivals that are similar to that, every Friday in Barbados, you know, anybody that goes to Barbados knows Friday night, you got to go buy oysters. That's where you go, and you have an entire community that's preparing fabulous fish and all the side dishes that go with the fish.
Absolutely.
And that is a mainstay for their business. Now, there's nothing to say that every single weekend, a certain number of Guyanese jump in their vehicle and they drive to Rockstone, and the people in Rockstone have a beautiful environment, and they can take it to another level where instead of 5 or 10 women or families providing that service, you could have 20.
Right.
You know, so that's why I really want to emphasize the business side of tourism. Because I think Guyanese have had this, and it's understandably so. We've had this airy-fairy notion that tourism is, you got to have a building and you got to call yourself a resort. And then now you're in the tourism industry. Incidentally, I was speaking with a very close Jamaican friend who was visiting yesterday. And she kind of highlighted to me the need for us to do a campaign to show Guyanese how they can become involved in tourism. Because as she said, every ordinary Jamaican now, and they've been working at it for years, so every ordinary Jamaican works out how, with whatever resources he has, whatever product he has, can he make some money from a potential tourist. And that's why if you go to Jamaica and you're just driving on your way to Montego Bay, you will see a couple of stands where they're either selling fish, they either have cold coconut water, there's something. So every ordinary person, or I should say regardless of where you are in the economics of the society, you have an opportunity to make $1 from tourism.
I really, to be honest with you, I'm listening to you and I'm really taking it because I understand and I want to reiterate your point. What you're basically trying to say is, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong. You know, when we travel to these islands, I'm going to use the Caribbean more locally because that's what would directly relate to us. You know, we don't go, and it's not all about the big fancy clubs and that sort of. We go and we always talk about the little roads. I mean, I was lucky I got a chance to go to Dominica. You know, not too long, a little while ago, and before the disaster happened. And I always remember this small little plantain on the side of the road, stuffed with saltfish. It's just a little lady with a little grill. But nonetheless, that is what tourism is, and we have to get into that concept.
That's an excellent example. Because think about it. That woman that hasn't had a job or has had a difficulty finding a job probably has her children to go to school, shoes, books, a house to feed, a household to run. If she sits down there and just with the resources that she has, she's in charge. She's making the decision in terms of what she can do.
Yeah.
And if she sells 50 of those at $10, she's ahead of sitting down thinking, oh God, I don't have a job. What is government doing for me?
Yeah.
This is a time in the world where we recognize everybody has to get up and go.
Entrepreneurial side, absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then, is it fair for me to say then that the government's contribution in this case would be the marketing side of Guyana?
Absolutely,
right.
right. That's where we come in. So, and the infrastructure, like I said.
And infrastructure.
So we have to make sure that that lady selling the saltfish and the plantain has a road that is not flooded with water.
Right.
And that's why we're asking Guyanese to make sure you got to stop throwing your garbage in the drains.
Yeah.
I saw some beautiful pictures the other day of the drain that goes, that's obliquely parallel to Camp Street.
Okay.
It's the side drain that would come probably from Waterloo Streets and those across and come down. And I could not believe it. It's actually a concrete drain. And it's clear, you know. I was looking at this picture thinking, oh my gosh, where is that? And then my friend said to me, that's that drain parallel just by that, the barbershop. You know, there's that side drain. You look up and you just see black.
Amazing, yes.
It's clear. It's clear, you know.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that's totally amazing. So we got to provide the infrastructure that she can put out her little tray or her little umbrella and her 2 chairs and her little table, her little cooler, whatever. Right. We also have to make sure that she has an environment, a safe environment, and all the other things that go with her being able to get up, feel positive, and go out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me just touch on one more very important part of, I mean, again, the marketing side of this. You know, as we know in the economy in the world right now, it has taken a fairly large dip. Things have slowed down. I mean, granted, like everything else, it will eventually build back up. When it comes to tourism, the reason I'm asking this is because I do have a little business up at Ogle Airport, and I've recently noticed a very large billboard has gone up as soon as you exit or enter, and it focuses on that same Mahika bird watching tour. And underneath it, the German government seems to be on board. The reason I say, or at least a consultancy company from there, the reason I ask this is are those the type of markets that we might be looking to tap into?
Absolutely,
is that what's happening?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you touched on an important point. We, meaning the government, through the ministry and the Guyana Tourism Authority, our role is to make sure that we market this country and we present an image, and we have more and more people coming in. So important to that is to make sure we have a quality product, make sure we have the requisite standards. So that's part of what the GTA does. In addition to telling the rest of the world, Guyana is here. We're not Ghana in Africa, we're Guyana in South America.
You have that problem too.
Exactly, we all do. So what is good is that we do that by going to a lot of trade fairs where we do business with tour operators. And those tour operators come from a series of different areas. And we actually have the statistics, so we know that about 49% of the visitors to Guyana are returning Guyanese, diaspora, or second generation you'd call Guyanese. Yes. Yeah. So that's a very important niche.
Yeah.
So when people think, oh Lord, why is Kathy going to folk festival? It's because if 90% of Guyanese are going to that one event, and they're 49% of our market, I need to speak to them. I need to tell them about coming to Guyana next year for the 50th anniversary.
What we have to offer.
What we have to offer. So that's it. The other large group is just a little over 25%, a quarter, and that is the Caribbean. The folks in the region that come down for motor racing, the Barbadians come for a series of domino competitions, they're sporting, squash. It's amazing the exchange that goes on. So they're another market we want to market to. Excellent. And then we have a growing niche market that is specifically the Germans, the Brits, and also to a less extent, the Dutch. People from Europe.
Right, the Europeans. Little extra spending capacity.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So those are people, believe it or not, that are already coming here.
Yeah, and have an interest.
And have an interest. because they are slightly more sophisticated tourists. They've done the beaches.
Yeah.
They want a new experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why Guyana is ideally targeted to support them. So in a couple of weeks' time, the largest tourism fair is World Travel Market. It takes place in London. And you actually have all the tour operators.
Yeah.
Now what we're going to do is we're already trying to set up, and I shouldn't say set up, trying. We're setting up meetings with tour companies.
Okay.
Because we're not going to one person and saying, please come to Guyana. We're going to the big tour companies that are British, that are European, that package tours.
Okay.
Because in Europe, remember, and that's something we have to start doing more of.
Yes.
You open your book and Thompson Travel or whoever the travel company tells you that for £2,000 you can go to Guyana for 7 days, all include everything
What we have to
included
offer.
exactly.
Absolutely.
And so therefore, those individuals would be booking across a year maybe 20 people a month.
And have
And those are the
guaranteed.
people we're targeting. That
Excellent.
are bringing groups of people on a regular basis and trying to expand that.
Well, I definitely see the strategy here. I mean, I don't mean to cut you. Granted, we are a live program and we're running on. You and I can chat about this for 2 hours more.
Yes, yes.
But it has been an absolute pleasure having you here. We hope as things develop, we're going to see more of you.
Absolutely.
You can come in and chat with us about more as we go along.
My pleasure.
All right.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Honorable Minister of Tourism, Ms. Catherine Hughes. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
All right?
Bye-bye.
I'll talk to you soon. Stay tuned to TVG. We will have